I was born in a hospital toilet. My birth mother didn't want me. After giving birth, she flushed and left without looking back. She thought I would fall into the sewer and become a piece of rotten flesh. Unexpectedly, I was tough. My head got stuck at the drain hole, and a nurse found me, pulling me out of the cesspool. The doctor said that although I was saved, there might be brain sequelae, and the risk of cerebral palsy couldn't be ruled out. At that time, surveillance systems were not yet well developed. After a week with no one claiming me, the hospital was preparing to send me to an orphanage. However, the moment the nurse handed me over, I, who had been quiet all along, burst into heart-wrenching sobs. Unable to bear it, the nurse snatched me back in an instant. From then on, she became my mother. Everyone said that Lily was a fool for adopting a child with cerebral palsy and that she would suffer endlessly in the future, but Mom would say, "What do you know? Penny is the best daughter anyone could ask for." She didn't have maternity leave, so she had to take me to work with her. To take care of me, she voluntarily transferred from the operating room to the ward. Her salary was cut in half, and she had to work night shifts. The only benefit was that the neonatal ward had free formula milk, which the nurses took turns fetching for me. And the head nurse turned a blind eye, but fate was not kind. At 6 months, when normal babies can sit up, I couldn't even roll over. Mom cautiously asked the pediatric specialist, "Penny is fine, right?" The pediatric specialist didn't even look up as he ordered a brain CT scan. "Do the scan first, then we'll talk." The technician in the CT room frowned deeply when she saw Mom. "Didn't you tell him you're from the hospital? Why order a CT for such a little one?" Mom bit her lower lip tightly. She was well aware that CT scans could affect development. But the doctor's casual remark had completely cornered her. If there really is an abnormality in the brain, even a single day's delay in diagnosis could lead to lifelong regret. After the CT scan results came out, the specialist examined them for a long time, adjusted his glasses, and said, "The imaging shows no abnormalities in the brain." Before my mother could catch her breath, he continued, "But this is a typical case of developmental delay, without early intervention. It will affect her for a lifetime." My mother's monthly salary was barely $4,000, while my rehabilitation expenses alone cost over $3,000, and even with rehabilitation, the chance of me being like a normal child existed only in theoretical probability. Mom came out of the rehabilitation center with red-rimmed eyes. Just then, I tilted my head in her arms and called out, "Mom, Mommy." Her eyes instantly sparkled like the morning star. "I knew it, my Penny is the smartest." She pressed her forehead against mine, secretly determined, "I will definitely cure you." From that day on, Mom would go to the rehabilitation department to do odd jobs after work. She had only 2 goals in mind. One was to reduce some costs through labor, and the other was to secretly learn the techniques. The rehabilitation therapists didn't fully understand, but since she was a hospital employee, they chose to turn a blind eye. But the head of the rehabilitation department was a principled person. After expelling Mom from the rehabilitation center for the 3rd time, Director Ivy warned her, "The hospital is a place for treating illnesses and saving lives, not for pulling strings or seeking favors. If you come again, I'll have a word with your supervisor." Mom slowly lowered her head, her hands clenched tightly together. The next day, she paid all the outstanding fees and never entered the rehabilitation room without permission again. During that time, she only ate 2 meals a day. "You spent all your money on him. What will you eat and use for yourself?" The nurse aunties couldn't bear to see it and shared their own food with Mom. The head nurse quietly went to find Director Ivy, but was scolded and sent back. Someone advised Mom, "Give up. She's not your biological child. What if she doesn't recover well and ends up disabled? You can't possibly take care of her for the rest of your life, can you?" Mom smiled and said, "Then I'll take care of her for the rest of my life." The person didn't say anything more and silently packed up their own child's outgrown clothes to give to Mom. Neither of them noticed that Director Ivy was standing at the corner of the hallway, having overheard the entire conversation. The next day, after finishing my rehabilitation, my mom was about to carry me away. Director Ivy, passing by the door, suddenly stopped my mom. "We still need a temporary logistics staff here. The workload isn't heavy, it's paid, and you can handle it after work. If you're willing, I'm willing." On the way back, my mom smiled, "You're such a little lucky star, Penny, even the heavens are watching over you. My precious little one, you'll definitely get better." From that day on, Mom would go to the rehabilitation room whenever she had time. Director Ivy noticed and deliberately lingered around her, teaching her hands-on. Thanks to the rehabilitation department subsidies, our lives have improved significantly. Mom no longer has to rely on colleagues' help to get enough to eat. In the rehabilitation room, children cry inside while parents weep outside. Only my mom is different. She can accompany me inside. Mom coaxed me, "Penny, let's play a game here." But the game wasn't fun at all. It was painful and exhausting, often leaving me drenched in sweat afterward. I was too young to refuse. I just started trembling every time I saw the door to the rehabilitation department. At such times, Mom's eyes would shine brightly, saying Penny wasn't afraid, yet her body trembled even more than mine. Finally, one day, Director Ivy told her, "You've mastered everything at this stage. You can do it at home by yourself from now on." Both Mom and I breathed a sigh of relief. Director Ivy's lips curled slightly upward. "I'll come to the inpatient ward for regular checkups." My mom and I froze simultaneously. Director Ivy tucked her hair behind her ear, turned, and walked away, leaving her achievements unspoken. Outside the rehabilitation department, I felt less resistant to the game. At 1 year old, I stood up. Mom happily hugged and kissed me over and over. At 2 years old, I learned my own name, Penny. Mom spun me around in her arms. "Everything will get better. It will all get better." But I saw Director Ivy behind her, with a gaze full of hidden worry. At 3 years old, I started kindergarten. Before I went, my mother specially prepared small gifts for every teacher and had already made arrangements, but I didn't even last a week before being asked to leave. She simply can't follow instructions, and being physically behind is one thing, but she also likes to hit people. What on earth are you teaching at home? I think there's something wrong with their brain. The teacher's sharp fingertip jabbed toward my head. Almost instinctively, I slapped it away. Smack! A red mark appeared on the teacher's hand. She sneered, "Look at you, just look at you. Hurry up and transfer schools. We can't handle this anymore." Mom reached out and pulled me into her embrace. I could clearly feel the rise and fall of her chest. "Apologize." The teacher looked at me with disdain. "In your dreams." Mom raised her head, her expression icy. "I recorded it. If you don't apologize, I'll play your words out loud at the entrance of your kindergarten. Let everyone judge your professional ethics as a teacher." The teacher's face stiffened, but he still stubbornly refused to speak. My mother continued, "I'll post it on my social media, share it in the class group chat, and let everyone have a good look." The teacher's expression changed dramatically, and he finally lowered his head. I'm sorry," holding my hand. My mother turned and walked away. When I got home, my mom asked me why I hit the other kids. I said, "Because they all called me a little idiot." After hearing this, Mom was silent for a long moment before firmly telling me, "You're not wrong. They are." From that day on, I became a school dropout. Mom didn't enroll me in any other kindergarten but kept me by her side instead. During the day, I stayed in the inpatient ward, where the nurses took turns playing with me. At night, I went home with Mom. The community found out I wasn't attending school and called specifically to inquire. Mom played the recording for them and said bluntly, "Can you guarantee that the teacher is even human?" Upon learning about it, Director Ivy made a special trip to my house. That day, she played games with me for a long time. Then she closed the door and talked with Mom from day until night. I don't know what they talked about, but when Mom came out of the bedroom, her eyes were as red as a little rabbit's. She walked Director Ivy to the door, and the two stood there for a long time. Finally, Mom said, "I won't give up." Later, I learned that on that day, Director Ivy had diagnosed me with autism. "Keep her, and you might have to take care of her for the rest of your life." Autism, like a thunderbolt splitting through layers of clouds, fate bared its ferocious fangs, finally revealing its full malice toward me. Repetitive behaviors, developmental delays, difficulty integrating into society. All those issues that had appeared suddenly had their answers. Most children with autism suffer from lifelong intellectual disabilities, exhibit peculiar behaviors, and struggle to integrate into society. Mom bought many books and also borrowed a lot of materials from Aunt Julia. She studied day and night, and gradually, those complex and difficult to pronounce professional terms became part of her daily life. Children with autism are often called children from the stars, but far from avoiding the topic, she would hold me close and count the stars in the sky, telling me that being different is not wrong. Penny is a star in the sky. They may seem distant from the crowd, but they still shine with their own brilliant light. She patiently taught me to speak and write, introduced me to nature, and helped me integrate into society, teaching me how to socialize. She devoted all her spare time to me. Though I wasn't born in love, I was incredibly fortunate to grow up surrounded by it. At 6 years old, aside from being quite introverted, there were hardly any noticeable issues with me. After contacting nearby schools, my mother made a bold decision. She concealed my condition and enrolled me in elementary school. On the first day of school, my mother dropped me off and stood at the school gate for a very, very long time. She was full of worry, yet she had to let go. Because she knew she couldn't take care of me forever, but she didn't know, in truth, at 6 years old, I already understood many things. The nurses in the ward told me that since mom is so good to you, you shouldn't always cause trouble for her. Aunt Julia taught me to look into people's eyes when speaking and not to push others too hard when playing. I know I'm different from others. Other children can chat while playing with toys, but I can't. Playing with toys and talking are two completely different things for me, and they simply cannot be done simultaneously. This led my classmates and teachers to think I was unfriendly and aloof. Moreover, I have an extremely strong sense of order. My toys and stationery must never be rearranged haphazardly. The scribbles and doodles on homework notebooks and scratch paper are utterly unbearable to me, but I've been enduring it. Because mom wants me to be normal, I don't want to disappoint her. I can endure a lot, I thought. If I could endure the pain of rehabilitation, what were school pranks and bullying in comparison? Back then, I didn't know what school bullying was. While adults' malice is weighed for pros and cons, subtle and veiled, children's malice is direct and unrestrained, unaware of its weight, because I didn't like talking, didn't enjoy playing with classmates, and absolutely hated when others messed with my things. Soon I became the target of bullying. Since my name was Penny, the boys nicknamed me Penis. They would suddenly shout, "Penis," in stairwells or hallways, and whenever I turned around, they burst into laughter. I don't look back, and they mock me loudly from behind, saying, "Penis is ignoring us now." I clench my fists, trying my best to avoid them, but this only makes them escalate their behavior. That day, I was on duty, but all the cleaning group members ran off after school, after I finished tidying everything up myself. I turned around and only then realized that the balcony door had been locked without me noticing. As dusk gradually deepened and the school bell rang to mark the end of classes, the entire building fell silent. Looking out from the balcony, it seemed as if the whole school was empty except for me. I felt somewhat restless inside. Mom is still waiting for me at the front gate. How anxious she must be, not being able to find me. My gaze shifted to the nearby drainpipe. Just as Mom arrived with the security guard, I slid down the drainpipe to the ground. My mother hugged me tightly, completely disregarding the dirt on my body. The security guard also breathed a sigh of relief and immediately began lecturing. "What were you thinking, sliding down a drainpipe? Do you have any idea how worried your mother was?" I raised my eyes and stared straight at him. The security guard, feeling guilty, turned his head away and fell silent. Everyone present knew exactly why I climbed down the drainpipe. Hastily trying to cover up and shift blame won't change the truth of the matter. This is blatant bullying. On the way home that day, Mom held my hand tightly without asking a single question. It was just late at night, squatting alone in the bathroom, washing clothes while tears fell. Hiding behind the bathroom door, my heart felt as if it had been stabbed and then salt was poured on the wound. For the first time, I felt hatred. I hated those classmates who found joy in pranks, and even more, helpless me. The next day, as soon as I opened the classroom door, a burst of laughter came from inside. "Heard you climb down through the sewer pipe. Are you a monkey that hasn't finished evolving yet?" The boy grinned and circled around me, trying to lift my skirt to see if there was a tail inside. At that moment, I was even calm. My mind flashed to the techniques the orthopedic doctor uncle had taught me. The next moment, a scream echoed throughout the classroom. "Ouch, ouch, ouch." Holding my completely twisted arm, I tilted my head and looked at the boy who had just tried to lift my skirt. "Funny, huh?" With that, she clasped her hands together, and with a click, she reset it for him. "Keep laughing." The boy let out a scream like a slaughtered pig. I stared at his tear-streaked face, released my grip, and uttered just 2 words, "Trash." I rarely enjoyed such a quiet morning. All my classmates avoided me like the plague. The male classmate whose arm I had broken and then reset ran out of the classroom in tears and never returned. At noon, the teacher walked into the classroom with a grim expression. "Penny, come here for a moment." In the teacher's office, Paul's parents were visibly furious. Bullying classmates at will has caused irreparable psychological trauma to our child. The school must give us an explanation. There must be a public apology. Otherwise, I'll join forces with the Parents' Association to demand her expulsion. I had just arrived, yet they had already deemed me guilty of heinous crimes, unilaterally passing judgment on me. The teacher didn't seem inclined to rein them in either, although Paul usually enjoyed bullying me. He was quite adept at picking on the weak and fearing the strong, always sweet-talking the teachers. Between a clearly abnormal child and a sweet-talking, diligent one, Teacher Jim had obviously made his choice, but no matter what they said, I refused to apologize, until, "Mr. Jim, I'm late." Mom's voice came from the doorway, and I turned around abruptly. I should have known, since the other parents were here. Teacher Jim must have called my mom too, when Mom saw me. She patted my back reassuringly and stepped in front of me, shielding me from those malicious gazes with her slight frame. Teacher Jim struck first. It was just a joke between classmates, but Penny resorted to violence. "If you don't want this on your record, apologize to Paul publicly." Mom crouched down to meet my eye level. "Can you tell me what happened?" He tried to lift my skirt, and I stopped him. Mom gave me a long look, then stood up. "So, you think lifting skirts is just a little joke?" Paul's father slammed the table. "What else could it be?" Teacher Jim said impatiently. "How is it not?" Mom nodded slowly and said, "An apology would suffice." I clenched my fists tightly, only to see my mother calmly continue. "But I have one condition. As long as you also lift up Teacher Jim's skirt, we'll apologize." The direction my mother pointed to was unmistakably Paul's father. Paul's father exploded in rage. "What the hell are you talking about? Would a grown man like me do such a hooligan thing?" Teacher Jim's expression also changed. "Penny's mom, please watch your words." But before she could finish, my mom interrupted with a cold laugh. "So, lifting my daughter's skirt is just a joke, but lifting Teacher Jim's skirt is hooliganism. Shall we go ask the principal right now whether Paul's behavior constitutes sexual harassment or not? If the principal says no, I'll go to the Education Bureau. If the Education Bureau still says no, I'll go to the Department of Education. Someone will eventually give us justice, don't you all agree?" As soon as the words were spoken, the expressions of everyone present changed. Teacher Jim stood up from his chair. "Penny's mom, there's no need." Paul's mother also grabbed Paul's father, quickly trying to smooth things over. "Actually, we're also at fault here. Paul didn't really get hurt in the end." Paul's eyes widened. Pointing at me with one hand, "She broke my arm," I sneered. "Seems pretty flexible to me. How could it be broken? Should I examine it again for you?" Upon hearing this, Paul immediately withdrew his hand and hid behind his father. His father, exasperated by his son's lack of backbone, gave him a hard slap on the back. Mom took in everything with a cold gaze and said icily to the people before her, "It's not me who owes an explanation today. It's you. Was it this Paul who locked my daughter on the balcony yesterday? You're accusing my daughter of hurting someone today." But Paul clearly doesn't have any visible injuries. However, the school hallway surveillance footage clearly shows who was behind yesterday's prank. The reason I was late just now was because I went to the security office to copy the surveillance video. The evidence is undeniable. At this point, everyone's expressions changed. The mother curled her lips into a cold smile. "Next Monday, issue a public apology at the school assembly. Otherwise, I'll call the police immediately." School bullying is a juvenile criminal offense that will be recorded in your permanent record. Without waiting for their response, Mom simply took me and left the school. Under the setting sun, our shadows stretched long and short behind us. The night breeze brushed past, carrying strands of her hair gently across my cheek. She said nothing, yet somehow I knew. She wasn't happy. Suddenly, I stopped in my tracks. I lied. "I hit him, Mom. I'm sorry." Mom turned to look at me. "You hit him because he deserved it. What makes Mom angry is that I only taught you how to be a good child, but didn't teach you how to stand up to bad kids." Mom isn't angry at you. Mom is angry at herself. It seems this has always been the case since childhood. No matter what happens, she always looks for reasons within herself. And as long as Mom gives me a big hug, all my worries turn into tears. Pouring down, I lay on her shoulder and cried my heart out. I don't know how Teacher Jim managed it, but Paul really read an apology letter aloud at the school assembly on Monday. From that day on, my fearsome reputation spread both inside and outside the class. Not only did Paul dare not provoke me, but none of the classmates dared to gossip about me anymore. Teacher Jim was displeased, but considering the video in my mom's hands, he didn't dare to do anything to me either, for a while. I enjoyed a peaceful time at school. I ate alone and did my homework alone. No one talks to me. and no one plays with me, but actually, for me, this is the most comfortable state. Those jokes that aren't funny at all, the gossip among classmates, I'm not interested in them at all. I just find them noisy. I no longer have to pretend to be normal, just to fit in. I know they call me a freak behind my back, but so what? Reading like a normal person, getting good grades, and making my mom happy. That's the only reason I go to school, and exams are far too easy for me. In 4th grade, the math teacher selected students for the Olympiad math team. He gave us a book of Olympiad math problems. If you can master these by the end of the semester, you'll have a chance to join the Olympiad team and compete in the district competition. I misheard him and thought he wanted us to finish all the problems, so I spent 2 days solving all the problems. When he received the book, his eyes widened like copper bells. Did you do all these yourself? I frowned, thinking he doubted my answers were copied. Pick any problem at random, and I can solve it for you right now. He wasn't convinced and actually randomly picked 3 problems for me. I finished writing the calculation process right in front of him. That day, I was once again asked to have my parents come to school. However, this time, the teacher's attitude was unprecedentedly enthusiastic. The math teacher held my mom's hand and said, "Penny's mom, your daughter is a genius." Mom's gaze was strange, thinking the teacher was being sarcastic. "Penny is absolutely a future math genius. You must let her delve deeper into mathematics." Mom listened for about 10 minutes before slowly looking down at me folding paper airplanes with printer paper. "She is genius." I straightened my back and handed the paper airplane to my mom, my gaze unwavering. "Me, a genius?" Mom took the paper airplane, her voice trembling. "My daughter, of course, is a genius. Tell a lie 1,000 times, and it becomes the truth. A fool praised 10,000 times becomes a genius." In the earliest days of my life, whenever I faced setbacks, my mother would tell me with unwavering conviction, "You are the best." As I grew older and gradually realized that not only was I not the best, but I might not even be as good as an average person, it was my mother's repeated, almost blind faith that strengthened my core. It made me never feel inferior or timid for being different from others. So, I can face criticism head-on and embrace praise with ease. With so many geniuses out there, why can't it be me? The math teacher and my mom suggested that I skip from 4th grade to 6th grade, this way. When the competition results come out, I could graduate as a 6th grader and be admitted early to the best middle school in our district. Mom was tempted but not without concerns. She asked me, "The class will be full of older kids. Are you scared, Penny?" I think of Paul, who's half a head taller than me, and waved my arm, saying, "Not afraid." And so the matter of skipping a grade was settled just like that. Once the final exams are over, I'll be moving to 6th grade. Since I was the only one in the class selected for the math competition team, it wasn't made a big deal. After school, I would carry my backpack and go alone to the tutoring classroom. In the unnoticed corners, the fact that I was called in for a parent-teacher meeting again and didn't go home promptly after school every day had spawned many versions among my classmates. Paul confidently declared that I must have gotten into serious trouble, which was why the teacher kept me after school as punishment. To prove the truth of his words, after school, he secretly followed me, and on this very day, I happened to have a follow-up hospital appointment. The next day, news that Penny from class 3, grade 4 had a mental illness spread throughout the entire school. In Paul's beady little eyes, a malicious glint flickered, telling the truth isn't spreading rumors. "What's a psycho doing reading books? Get out of our class." Other classmates started joining in the commotion. "Get out of class 3, get out of class 3. Countless ferocious faces surged toward me. They don't know the truth, nor do they want to find out. Paul acted like a magnifying glass, amplifying the malice hidden in the hearts of my classmates, and this malice was directed at me, the weak one, overwhelming me from all sides. Even though I usually remain calm, at that moment, I couldn't help but feel a surge of fear. Just as countless hands were about to grab me and drag me out, the math teacher arrived at the classroom door, panting heavily. "What are you doing? Do you all want to go to juvenile court?" The hands reaching toward me recoiled instantly, as if burned. Paul grinned and stepped forward. "Teacher, you don't know yet, do you? Penny is a psycho. How can a mentally ill person go to school? Let's drive her out together." The math teacher froze for a moment, his gaze briefly lingering on me before he loudly scolded Paul, "Spreading rumors you heard from who knows where at school. Do you realize you're spreading false information? Paul's smile grew even wider. I'm not spreading rumors. Yesterday I followed Penny and saw with my own eyes when she entered the psychiatric department at First People's Hospital. To be absolutely sure, I even took photos as evidence. Paul pulled out a photo he had prepared in advance, where my name was prominently displayed on the screen at the entrance of the psychiatric department. Tell me yourself, isn't this you? All eyes turned to me. In an instant, countless images flashed through my mind. Mom stood with 6-year-old me at the entrance of the elementary school, softly asking, Penny, let's try a regular school. Okay. The scene flashed by, and amidst countless pairs of either malicious or puzzled eyes, I said, it's me, Mom, perhaps. I'm going to disappoint you again. I dropped out of school again. Mom left early and returned late every day, shuttling between the school and the education bureau for my sake. Whether autism counts as a mental illness is actually not definitively settled in the medical field, and children with mild autism could originally be accepted by regular schools. But my mother's concealment of my condition and my previous violent incident made the school exceptionally determined to expel me. Autistic individuals are not best suited for studying. They should learn how to survive in society. Teacher Jim clearly held a grudge over the last incident, his curled lips full of disdain. The principal avoided meeting with my mother, leaving Teacher Jim to handle everything. In just a week, Mom's hair turned half white. Paul and his parents made such a big fuss that nearly every parent in the circle knew about my concealed medical history when enrolling. Not only did my elementary school demand I withdraw, but other nearby schools also refused to accept me. When Aunt Julia came to visit, Mom, who had been strong in front of me, finally broke down in tears. I didn't mean to hide it on purpose. I just wanted Penny to have the education of a normal child. I didn't expect. Aunt Julia held the distraught mother, comforting her with gentle pats on the back. It's not your fault at all. Mild autism can definitely attend regular elementary school. They were the ones who were wrong, not you. Just then, a knock sounded at the door. Standing outside the slightly ajar door was the slightly awkward math teacher. May I come in? I have a slightly different thought that might help Penny. This is Penny's report card from the competition group. She learns mathematics incredibly fast and can apply knowledge flexibly. She's absolutely a genius. Mom looked puzzled. I know that. But what does it prove? Aunt Julia looked serious. Wait, you're saying she's a genius in math? Yes. Aunt Julia's eyes lit up. Right. How could I not have thought of something so obvious? Shio, wait for me, I'm going home to get a test. She ran off like the wind. Mom was dumbfounded. What's wrong with her? The math teacher smiled slightly, because we all believe Penny isn't an ordinary case of autism, it's Asperger's, also called the genius disease. When the test results came out, Aunt Julia, Mom, and the math teacher all surrounded me, crying and laughing. I looked at them, unable to describe the mix of emotions in my heart. The nurse auntie who often sneaks me snacks, the orthopedic uncle who taught me self-defense, the math teacher who bought books for me out of his own pocket, and Auntie Julia who has always quietly cared for me. Their kindness was like the stars in the sky, illuminating my once pitch-black future. After the excitement, the math teacher was the first to calm down. Although Asperger's isn't typical autism, and this could convince the school, it won't persuade parents who are being swayed by the narrative. What should we do then? Mom and Aunt Julia asked in unison. Let Penny participate in the competition and win first place. By then, not only the affiliated elementary school, but other schools will be competing to have her. Then it's settled, Aunt Julia said with full confidence. I'll send Penny's medical records and test results to my senior colleague when I get back. My senior colleague is a big name in the field. Once he confirms Penny is a genius, let's see who dares to spread rumors that she's mentally ill. The math teacher's glasses flashed with a glint of light as he pulled out a brick-thick book from his bag. This is competition material. Me, I feel like I've been tricked, but I have no proof. Late at night, Aunt Julia and the math teacher both left. Mom warmed up a glass of milk for me. Watching her bustling figure, I couldn't help but ask, "Are you unhappy?" Mom looked up in confusion. You haven't said a word since the math teacher asked me to join the competition. Are you worried that I won't do well on the test and won't have a chance to continue my education? Mom's expression shifted from surprise to a gradual dimness. Mom was just thinking, if we had noticed earlier, maybe none of this would have happened now. You wouldn't have been bullied, wouldn't have had classmates pointing at you and insulting you. wouldn't have been looked down upon by teachers. Did I fail to take good care of you? The doctor said that people with autism find it difficult to understand others' emotions, but at this moment, I could so clearly feel my heart aching with a sour, swollen pain. What kind of feeling was this? Mom was like a seashell, facing me with the softest core, while confronting the world with a hard shell. Clearly having given everything to shield me from the storm, yet always fearing it's still not enough. But, if it weren't for you, I'd have long been a lump of rotten flesh in the sewer. Even if I were lucky enough to be saved, I'd just live on as a little monster, out of place in this world. You're definitely the best mom in the world. Tears streamed down Mom's cheeks as she turned away in embarrassment. What's this all of a sudden? So sentimental. I walked over and hugged her from behind. I don't know when it started, but I've grown to be only half a head shorter than her, nor do I know when it started, but Mom hasn't bought herself a single new piece of clothing. Against the backdrop of her faded clothes, my new dress stands out. On the simple dining table, only my favorite fruits are placed. To me, my mother is my salvation, but was meeting me really a good thing for her? Mom, have you ever thought about finding me a dad? What are you talking about? After all these years, have you really had no suitors or blind dates? It seems our Penny has reached that age too. Spring fever for a young girl. The next day, I plunged into the vast ocean of mathematics. In an environment free from disturbances, my exceptional focus is displayed to its fullest extent. As long as Mom doesn't call me for meals, I can sit at my desk and solve problems all day without any distractions, but I have something on my mind. After Mom left, I secretly followed her to the hospital and made my way to Aunt Julia's office. Aunt Julia was very happy to see me. You've lost weight, don't stress too much. It's okay if you don't get in. Let me tell you, my senior is making a special trip to City C soon. He's really impressive. I cut her off, getting straight to the point. Aunt Julia, if my mom loves kids so much, why didn't she have one of her own? Aunt Julia was visibly taken aback. Was it because of me? Did I hold her back? I was kicked out of the office by Aunt Julia. It's been years since I last received this kind of treatment, and for a moment, I actually felt a bit nostalgic. Not really. On the way home, Aunt Julia's big face kept lingering in my mind. Little brat, stop pretending to be pitiful. I minored in child psychology too, you know, want to gossip. Now that you're grown up, you think you can boss your mom around. Go ask your mom when you get home. The meeting ended, leaving me with a chill down my spine. I knew it. Among all these adults, Aunt Julia was the hardest to fool. But for the moment, there's really no one to ask. Forget it. Forget it. Focus on the exam first. After all, with good grades in hand, the world is mine. Whether I can go from being a dropout to the most sought-after student by every school hinges on this very moment. April, the preliminary round. I won first place without any suspense. On the day the results came out, Mom received a call from Teacher Jim. Penny's withdrawal documents still require her personal presence to sign. Mom hung up the phone expressionlessly, shutting out all the disturbances outside my study. June, the semi-finals. The competition was held in City A. The math teacher took special leave to accompany me to the contest. Passing by University A, I saw children coming out from inside. The math teacher told me, "These are kids from the Gifted Youth Program at University A." His eyes lit up. "Everyone in the Gifted Youth Program is a genius. Penny, you'll definitely become one of them someday." I glanced at them, finally resting my gaze on Mom's face. Mom looked at the plaque of University A, her eyes shining. Is University A really that good? Of course, it's the most prestigious institution in the country. I averted my gaze. Oh, the exam ended soon after, and for once, Mom didn't scrimp. She treated the math teacher and me to a lavish meal. The next day, the results of the semi-finals were announced, and unsurprisingly, I took first place. The elderly man presenting the award patted my head and said, "How about coming to University A in the future and becoming my last disciple?" I looked at his graying beard with some disdain. "Are you really that impressive?" The math teacher's legs went weak, as if he was about to kneel. "Professor Chen, don't take her words to heart. Penny, this is a titan in the field of mathematics in our country." After a moment's thought, I added, "As long as you can solve my problem of being out of school, I'll come to a university and be your last disciple." The math teacher was sweating profusely, and the white-bearded old man laughed heartily. "It's a deal." On the way back, the math teacher remained unusually quiet, and when we parted, he patted me on the shoulder. "Thanks to you, this is going to be interesting." The good show didn't keep us waiting for long. The The news of me winning first place in the math competition was like a spark, instantly burning through the nerves of the elementary school teachers and classmates. Mom's phone was practically on fire from all the calls from Teacher Jim. She had been aggressively pushing me to sign the withdrawal forms before, but now she wished she could take back her actions from a month ago. He earnestly insisted that I must return to class. The classmates also buzzed with gossip. Can a mentally ill person really win first place in a competition? It was just a rumor before. Paul never got along with her. My aunt says depression actually counts as a mental illness too. I heard the mathematics grandmaster wanted to take her as a disciple. Now, with the school expelling his potential disciple on baseless grounds, where does that leave the grandmaster's reputation? Invitations from other schools also arrived at just the right time, extending olive branches. Come to our school, we guarantee no bullying, and your daughter will have a very relaxed learning environment. Our school is private, but if your daughter comes, tuition will be fully waived, plus. With the K-12 system, she can advance directly to middle school. Various pieces of news kept pouring in, but the math teacher advised all of us not to choose it. Penny is mentally mature and has an exceptional learning ability. The standard academic year system would waste her talent and time. Jumping straight to middle school is the most time-efficient and simplest solution. But here's the problem. Although I've received invitations from middle schools, they all come with one condition. I must have a student status, yet right now, I've just been expelled. Where would I get a student status? At this moment, the principal of the affiliated elementary school suddenly paid a personal visit. It was all a misunderstanding before. Penny is a genius nurtured by our school. We've dealt with the student who spread the rumors and their parents. Please come back to school without fail. Rumors? I was somewhat puzzled. Wasn't it me who personally nodded and admitted it? The principal smiled slightly. Student Paul spread rumors about his classmates without verifying the facts, which constitutes school bullying. We have already advised him to withdraw. In addition, Teacher Jim violated regulations by accepting gifts and overstepping her authority, resulting in student G being expelled. Such behavior that violates professional ethics is truly a black sheep. We have already dismissed her. The principal said that my expulsion process had not actually been completed, so as long as I was willing, I could still apply to middle school under the name of the affiliated elementary school. That means I don't have to go back to class, right? Yes, I was naturally happy to do nothing and just report to the new middle school when the new semester started, but such a big change felt somewhat suspicious. Mom also felt something was off, even though she won the award. For the elementary school to go this far seems a bit unusual. In the end, it was the math teacher who cleared things up. On Penny's first day back in C City, the Grandmaster called the C City Education Bureau. The very next day, the principal of the elementary school was summoned to the Education Bureau to explain, Penny, with a teacher like the Grandmaster guiding you, your future is bound to be bright. My mouth couldn't help but form an O shape. I never expected that old man with the white beard to be so impressive. Suddenly, I felt a twinge of reverence for that medal I had been using as a table leg support. With the principal's divine assistance, I successfully enrolled in the best local middle school. When I went back to school to get some materials, I happened to run into their morning assembly, in front of all the teachers and students. The principal called out to me just as I was about to slip away unnoticed. Next, let's invite student Penny to share her study methods with us. Let's give her a round of applause. I was forced to step onto the podium. Mom came out of the rehabilitation center with red-rimmed eyes. Lufo's gaze passed through them, and I saw Mom standing at the very back of the crowd. My hand gripping the microphone suddenly gained strength. I did have something to say, but it wasn't what the principal had hoped for. I am autistic. In hospitals, autism falls under the psychiatric department. So, when you say I have a mental illness, it's not a rumor. However, autism is not contagious and is non-threatening. At school, I have never actively harmed anyone, except for legitimate self-defense against others' harm. The principal wanted me to talk about study methods, but I have nothing to share, because my way of learning cannot be replicated by you. But taking this opportunity, I'd like to thank my mom. You always say I'm a star in the sky, a gift from heaven, then I'm willing to be the brightest star in the night sky, lighting the way home. On the way back, Mom cried uncontrollably. I didn't comfort her, just held her hand the whole time. Actually, I saw my mom's medical records in the study. Before adopting me, she had just gone through a miscarriage and a divorce. Perhaps, at the moment she picked me up from the restroom, she was thinking of her own child from before, so she couldn't bear to see me thrown into an orphanage. she adopted me. Enduring countless scornful looks to raise me, she sheltered me from the storms, even though I might never amount to anything, but the original intentions no longer matter. A mother's love ignites my life, therefore, I am willing to give my all to repay this love, the Buddha said, with the intention to benefit others, seek perfect enlightenment. The road is long, let us walk it slowly. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you like this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.